Welcome to Seeds of Encouragement, where seeds of hope, confidence, and success are planted so you can grow. I am your host, Nancy Gonzalez. I help women create their own roadmaps to success so they can find their true identity. Welcome to our show. Today we have Chris D.T. Gordon on our show. This is an amazing human being. I can't wait for you to get to know him today. Chris is a faithful husband, father of three, an online middle school special ed teacher. It takes a very special person to do that. A professional speaker, a runner, a Taekwondo student, and a pop culture geek. But wait, there's more. He's also a survivor of necrotizing fasciitis who uses his story and message to inspire others to adapt the attitude of gratitude and positively affecting their lives. Chris, you are an incredible human being, and thank you so much for being on our show today. How are you?
Oh, thank you very much, Nancy, for the opportunity. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much. So tell us, what is your seed of encouragement that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I want to share the seed of passing on perfection and going for greatness.
Ooh,
And
nice.
yes, thank you. And I know that in a previous conversation that we had, you and I talked about how I adopted the attitude of gratitude. And you also mentioned that just previously. When I created that when I was in the hospital, I realized that as I looked down on my body, and we'll get to this in a little bit, it was not perfect anymore. Not that it was ever perfect in the first place, but it was much more imperfect. And for me to really try to strive for perfection in that realm was going to be unattainable and a fool's errand. So I figured instead of trying to be perfect, I would try my darndest to be great. And that's how I live my life. And I urge people to do the same. Don't worry about perfection. If you are great enough, you'll reach perfection once in a while, but try to attain that consistent greatness.
That is so awesome. That's awesome. And that's a good message to share because I know everybody, it doesn't matter how old they are, male or female, we all seem to have that idealization of you want to be perfect. You got to be just the top of everything. And while that's great, it brings on so much stress that we just don't need. So that is awesome. I love that you're sharing that. So you said you were going to share a story about when you were in the hospital.
Yes, in March 2015, I was flying my young son to the garage as I was helping my wife get our three young kids to the van so they could go to school. She would drop them off on her way to school herself as a teacher. And so as I was flying him back and forth, I went too far to the right as we were walking to the garage, and I scraped the back of my right hand on my garage door and garage wall, actually. Well, I didn't think too much of it. I've had scratches before. So I took him, put him into the car seat, kissed them all goodbye. And as they drove off, I went back into the house to wash off my wound and start my day as you said, online middle school special education teacher. Well, 3 days later, I wake up and I have a huge lacrosse ball sized bump on my arm. I don't usually wake up like that. So I went to the walk-in clinic and they first thought it was bursitis. And they told me to keep an eye on it. But throughout that day, I had become more lethargic. I had gotten sick a few times, and that bump had grown into an enormous mass that engulfed my right arm. I looked like the Incredible Hulk in mid-transformation, basically. My right arm was triple the size of my left. My wife took me to the emergency room once we had secured a babysitter for the kids. They couldn't do anything for me. This is beyond them. This is a regional hospital. They had never seen anything like this. They kept me overnight, trying to stabilize me because not only did I have a huge right arm, I had also developed sepsis because my body was trying to fight this infection. And for those who don't know what sepsis is, it's for, in layman terms, an exaggeration of the body to kill an infection by basically trying to kill you, by sending a toxic chemical into your bloodstream. And so many people die of sepsis itself. So I was in a sticky situation. The next morning, that attending doctor told me that there was nothing they could do for me there. This was beyond them, their words. And they asked me where I wanted to go. Well, I told them the Mayo Clinic, not only because it's the Mayo Clinic, but also because my in-laws live there in Rochester, Minnesota. And my father-in-law at the time was a chaplain there. So I knew that we were gonna be well connected. And also my wife and kids would have some place to stay for the, I'm sure, 2 or 3 days this would take to resolve. They fly me in a plane from New Ulm, Minnesota to Rochester, where they quickly diagnosed me with, as you said, necrotizing fasciitis or flesh-eating bacteria. And they got me on some painkillers, wheeled me in for my first of several surgeries, and had put me under for 5 days.
Oh my gosh, Chris, that's amazing.
It was
Wow.
quite the whirlwind that those 2 days, yes.
Absolutely incredible. Wow. So how are you today?
You know, today I am fantastic. And people might say, oh, you contracted a disease you might only hear about in a horror film. How are you fantastic? Well, it was the people around me. As soon as I awoke from my coma and I had shaken off some hallucinations that we won't talk about right here, I was hearing from my wife, Becky, about all of these kind acts that people are doing for me and for our family. People
Wow.
are donating food, they're donating toys to our kids. When Becky had packed up the kids and driven to Rochester, she again thought it was 2 or 3 days max. She didn't pack for the 2 weeks they would end up spending there. So a lot of people have dropped off toys. I have a lot of colleagues from my school that live in the Rochester area. They stopped by to play with the kids. My brother flew in from Michigan, where we both grew up, to stay with us for a week. And a friend of my wife's from high school created a GoFundMe account. And strangers, absolute strangers, have been donating hundreds of dollars to this account. So when I hear all this, I make the decision to adopt what I now call the attitude of gratitude, because I felt that if I were to become morose, pessimistic, negative about the situation at all, it would be a slap in the face to anyone who stepped up to help us. And so I started, first of all, thinking of all the great things in my life. And of course, the big things came to mind: my faith, my family, my friends, my job, my home. But then I started thinking about the small things, the seemingly insignificant aspects of my life that I would normally overlook. Like, for example, at that time, the show Daredevil had premiered on Netflix. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm a little bit of a geek based on my Ninja Turtle and Iron Man posters and my Star Wars sweater, because at this time, The Mandalorian season 2 just dropped on Disney Plus. So I love my pop culture. And so Daredevil was right up my alley. And my brother had bought me an iPad so I could binge watch as much as I wanted to while I was recovering. And then one other thing I want to point out is that the sun never shined in my eyes in my hospital room. And I know that really sounds obscure and out of left field, but when you are bedridden for 2 or 3 weeks and you have no control over your environment other than maybe a random remote control that doesn't work the blinders, on your window, I was really thankful that I didn't have to ask someone to close the blinds when the sun was shining into the room. And so it's finding those really small things that I find joy in, or I just appreciated, that made me feel more positive. And then I started acknowledging the appreciated. I started thanking people for what they have done for me and my family, both in person and online. And then finally, I started giving someone else a reason to be grateful. Now, I couldn't do a lot in the hospital when I was recovering. I could message people on social media, and I could donate to other people's GoFundMe accounts. But once I got out of the hospital, once I was discharged, I started thinking of ways I could give back. For example, I'm a runner, and sometimes, actually most of the time, when I'm running and I see garbage on the road or in someone's yard, close by, so I'm not trespassing, I grab that garbage because I want my neighborhood to look beautiful, and I want others to know that someone's looking out for them. Mm-hmm. Or we have neighbors to the north and south of us, and sometimes their lawns need mowed and they're not home, or they're busy with baby twins like my neighbors to the south. So I'll mow their lawns once in a while. And like those examples suggest, they cost nothing, but they can mean the world to the person receiving them.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you're showing is just kindness. And that's what our world needs so much of, is just random acts of kindness is what you were doing. And the fact that you took such a horrible situation and turned it into something so positive, and you made something so good out of it, that's incredible. Very, very proud of you. And I'm glad to know you, because you've inspired me. And I've started to go, okay, I need to really start thinking, what am I grateful for? Because like you said, there's those big things, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, God, there's so much to be thankful for. So yes, thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by and visiting with me and sharing these things with me, Chris. You're a pretty awesome guy. Your family's very lucky to have you.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate you and all of you have done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And, I always tell people that together is how we accomplish so much more. So, sharing your message that maybe someone is listening to and needs to hear that could be a life changer, for them. So I really do appreciate that. Any last words before we step off?
I just wanted to go back to the pass on perfection and go for greatness. With that positivity that I built from practicing what I call TAG, or the attitude of gratitude, I've been able to do many things. In fact, I've set numerous personal running records. I have attained my recommended black belt in Taekwondo. I've attained another teaching license. And so by practicing the attitude of gratitude, I've filled myself with such positivity that I was also inspired to push myself to that greatness. So I think if people did that, they could do that themselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that sometimes if I'm having a really rough day or if I'm stressed, I sometimes will stop and think, okay, what am I thankful for at the moment? And I actually bought a calendar for my desk for work to keep all my appointments. And I noticed one day, I never even noticed it, that there was a little box on the bottom every single day. It's, what are you grateful for today? And I love that. And I make sure every day to put something that's significant, not just, okay, I'm grateful for my family. Like you said, the big things. I had such a nice drive to work today, or I'm so grateful that, I get to speak about something I'm so passionate about, or just things like that, because it does make you start to feel better. It kind of lifts up your spirit, and it makes you realize, it's not as bad as I think it is. So
yes, there are numerous studies that show that practicing gratitude not only helps you mentally, but also physically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for stopping by, Chris. I really do appreciate it. And I know that someone is going to just absolutely love your message, and it's going to be very powerful. So thank you so much. And thank you those that stopped by to visit us today. I am your host, Nancy Gonzalez, and you can visit me at nancyencourages.com. And remember, use your words so that they may be helpful and an encouragement to others. Have a great day.